that a team that's got Chase that is going to get plenty of targets. I don't think they're going to have to pass a lot for the Cincinnati, excuse me, the Bengals, just because the Patriots are a team that I don't expect to score a lot. So I do think that Chase should have some targets his way. If you have a better option, then maybe you want to put someone above Chase, but I still think you've got to put Chase this week, even though he hasn't had a lot of playing time in practice this offseason with his contract situation. So again, I think Chase is going to be a great option. But again, some big news there. Again, Justin Fields is going to be playing big stuff. I think that helps again amplify George Pickens, which is great news. Tyreek Hill is going to play even with the detained situation going on his way into the stadium. And then again, big news for Dak Prescott going into this game, knowing that he's got his contract signed. He doesn't have to worry about it. I think that's a big deal, and I think that's going to be big for him. So, again, those are some of the big headlines going into the season so far. We had some good games on Thursday and Friday. Unfortunately, some bad news for Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. You know, luckily it was just an MCL sprain. It could have gotten worse. So Love will be out anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. Malik Willis looks to be the starting quarterback. We'll see how that plays out. I know a lot of people are going after Ryan Tannehill. For someone that is kind of on this, out there that could possibly go. So again, you could possibly pick him up if you want, if you're in deeper leagues. But again, Malik Willis will be the guy going forward as of right now for the Green Bay Packers. Now, with that said, it's going to, unfortunately, I think, limit those receivers. But again, that's something that we're going to have to play and kind of see what happens. Again, big news for the Eagles. Saquon Barkley came out on all cylinders. I know there were a lot of hesitation. I think part of it was the uncertainty of how he's going to play in this offense. Was he going to, like in years past, Jalen Hurts take all the red zone activity, but it didn't show that up at all, which was great news. Barkley was able to actually get, plenty of options and opportunities in the red zone, which is what my hesitation was from looking from the outside. Were they actually going to utilize Barkley to his potential? And he did. He shined really, really well. And it's scary for an Eagles offense that still had great performances out of AJ Brown. Devonta Smith still had 15 points in fantasy. Like there were still good performances out of the receivers, and Barkley still shined. So that whole offense should be almost essentially a week in and out start every single week, no matter the matchup. So that's some good stuff. And then we'll talk about the rookie Xavier Worthy, who looked really good from the Thursday night game. He shined in on 2 touchdowns. Now, I do worry with Hollywood Brown coming back because I think Worthy was definitely more of a gadget player. His speed definitely shows and may actually have some value later on into the season. So that is something that's going to be huge. But again, I'm not sure if I'm jumping on Xavier Worthy as a must start every single week. Rasheed Rice is absolutely the number one target. Travis Kelsey's still there. And again, with Hollywood Brown coming back, I still think Hollywood Brown would have some stronger value than Worthy. But who knows? With Worthy, getting more and more traction, he may end up being the second receiver, as far as an option for Patrick Mahomes. Pacheco looked pretty good. Again, anytime you these first games, everyone's kind of getting figured out. They're trying to figure out their offense. They're trying to figure out the offensive line. They're still trying to figure out how things are going to gel, especially teams like the Baltimore Ravens. I know everyone is down and out on Derrick Henry already, and it was one game. Derrick Henry obviously had a red zone touchdown that helped save him, statistically in fantasy this week. But the fact is, that offensive line, a lot of new faces, a lot of struggles, and with that, it showed. There was no space for Derrick Henry to move. He's not that type of guy who needs, just a little bit. He needs a little more space, but once he gets going, he's a back that you don't want to face. So I think he's going to be definitely used a lot later on in the season. So Connor, Ford or Christian Kirk. When we're talking PPR, I think Ford has a decent matchup against Dallas. Dallas is definitely a defense that I'm worried about. They haven't shown enough against the run, but in this case, I'm going Christian Kirk against the Miami Dolphins. Ramsey may not play. Ramsey probably won't cover Kirk anyways. So I do think that Christian Kirk is a great option. He plays mostly slot, and he's definitely Trevor Lawrence's favorite receiver. I think he's going to get a lot more opportunities because I think Jaguars will have to try to keep up with the Miami Dolphins. So I would go Kirk this week for sure over Ford. Just because Dallas defense, I'm not sure how they're going to really perform. Defensively, they struggle against the run, but they actually have some linebackers this season compared to last season. So I do think that, yeah, Christian Kirk is definitely the way to go this week for sure. So again, any other news? I mean, right now, again, Russell Wilson out. I want to make sure everyone's aware. Russell Wilson is out. Fields is in. I think a lot of people probably grabbed him pretty quickly off waivers if you didn't already draft Justin Fields. So Fields actually, I wouldn't say he's a top 10 option this week. I think if you're in a deeper league and maybe you're in super flex, you're going to put him in your lineup. But as far as a start this week, I wouldn't put him in over some of the other players that are out there. DeAndre Hopkins, again, some injury updates. His is going to play. We'll see how limited he is. He's got that MCL situation going on, so that's something we've got to keep an eye on. So he may just be limited snaps. I think Calvin Ridley is a great option this week, especially against this Bears defense that's actually really, really good. And I think that's a Bears defense and offense that are going to put up some points against the Tennessee Titans. I think they're going to have to pass quite a bit. I'm curious how that backfield for the Tennessee is going to be with Tajai Spears and Pollard. It's pretty much essentially going to be a split. It's what it's been told, 50-50. We'll see if that actually is true. So both of those running backs I have pretty low in my rankings because I'm not sure how Tennessee is going to truly use them. But again, injury update with Hopkins. Higgins has been officially put as an out for this game. So again, for those who haven't heard, Jamar Chase will play. I know he's talked about being limited. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think if you have Jamar Chase, you've just got to put him in your lineup and trust the fact that he will play without any limitations because they're going to need him with T. Higgins out. Yoshi Voss is obviously a great option. He should be picked up pretty quickly this week if you haven't already grabbed him because, again, he's going to be a nice little option. Maybe, Trent Irwin or Burton or some other options if you're in deeper leagues, but I think Yoshi Voss is a great player to grab. The Dolphins, I've had this question quite a bit as well. Who to start if you have like Raheem Mostert? Mostert should be in the lineup. I know everyone loves Devon Achane. I think he's got explosive ability and he's going to be utilized quite a bit, but I think they are going to use that double headed monster. Jalen Wright will not play for the Dolphins this week. So again, it's really going to be Mostert and Achane. So, both of them I would put in your lineup if you can, because I think they're both going to have some value this week, especially against a Jaguars defense that really hasn't been known to be great against the run or even against the pass. They have improved a little bit this offseason, but I think that's a question I get a lot is Mostert. Another question, Ford or Mostert? I still would lean a little bit more towards Mostert there, Evan, just because, again, that offense is really, really good. It's too explosive. Dallas's defense is definitely better than the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ford obviously doesn't have a lot of competition compared to Mostert, where he's going to probably, I think Mostert's going to be 55% touches compared to Achane's 45%. But McDaniels may ride the hot hand, and if Achane goes off pretty early in the game, Mostert may disappear, which is kind of the nervousness when you play him. But I think that offense is just, look at last year. They did a really good job handling both backs, where they both saw plenty of opportunity and plenty of fantasy points. So I would put Mostert in over Ford because, again, I think Dallas is really putting an emphasis on stopping the run. They got eaten up last season, and I think that's a big deal for Mike Zimmer. So I think just based off the fact that they've got new linebackers and new defensive scheme, I think they're actually going to be pretty good. And Ford is, I'm a little nervous against Dallas this week because if Dallas gets up big, Ford may not have the ability or value this week at all. So again, I like Mostert over Ford this week. So again, ask some questions. I know there's a lot going on. Everyone's excited for the NFL this week. I'm excited. I've got way too many fantasy teams to be looking at, but I'm super excited. I'm super excited to see some of the matchups. There's some really great games this week. There's some, I'm looking forward to games like the Falcons and Steelers. I'm looking forward to see how that plays out. I would love to see Bijan Robinson go off against the Steelers just because of the Arthur Blank situation from last season, but I could also see Arthur Blank really using his backs like Najee and Jalen Warren and using those guys against a Falcons defense that has revamped quite a bit, and we'll see how well they gel. Defenses tend to do pretty good compared to, say, like an offensive line kind of blending in together, but there is a lot of changes in Atlanta, so defensively, I'm curious how that's going to play out for them. But I do like that game. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I'm looking forward to Bryce Young And that Carolina team, new head coach, new scheme. I think a lot of people gave up on Bryce Young pretty quickly last season compared to, say, the success that Stroud had. I do think Stroud was a better prospect and a better quarterback coming into the NFL, so I will stand by that. But I think Bryce Young needs to give another shot. I think this is a great opportunity, and I like this offense a lot. I think Deontay Johnson's a great start every single week in most matchups because I think, again, successfully, he's going to be there. Thoughts on Chargers running back? I got Edwards on my bench, hoping JK is too banged up to allow. Um, I think right now I like Gus Edwards. I have him. I had him as my one of my sleepers this week. I think Gus Edwards is going to be a nice sneaky play. I think he's somebody that can get you. I think he can definitely get you double digits in your flex play. I wouldn't put him as an RB2 quite yet. I do think that the Chargers will absolutely use the running game. I like Dobbins a lot. I think he's very talented, but you have to understand that offense. I think they're going to use both backs. I think Dobbins coming off the injury is going to definitely give you something you have to keep an eye on. I think Gus is definitely going to be the better back. I think he's going to get plenty of red zone, really opportunities in general. I think he's going to be, I think he gets 60 yards on the ground, a touchdown, maybe a reception here or there. He's not known for that, but I think he gets you that 12 to 13 point range, and I think it's okay for a flex play for someone that has some potential. I don't think Dobbins has any real value as of right now. I think there's a lot more to be. We kind of have to see a little bit more before I even consider putting him in a lineup right now. If you're in deeper leagues, maybe. We're talking 16 team leagues or something like that. Or deep rosters, something like that. Maybe Dobbins has a little more value, but as of right now, I would say Gus Edwards definitely would be the one I'm putting in, and I'm putting him in the flexes if I can. Just like a lot of people are kind of sitting on and unsure what to do with Lad McConkey. He's got essentially, in the starting lineup, and I think he's got instant value, and I think he's somebody that you're going to want to put in your lineup as a flex play. Because again, I think even though I know a lot of people are so adamant about this can be a rushing offense, I still think when you got a quarterback like Justin Herbert, you're not going to just let him go back. You pay him to just hand off the ball. Like, you're going to use Herbert. He's going to go out there. He's going to obviously make plays. He's obviously still dealing with that plantar fasciitis, so that we'll see how he plants his foot. Because everything is about your legs when it comes to passing the ball. So we'll see how that plays out. But I do think McConkey's going to be a nice little play. And I also like Josh Palmer. He's coming, is coming back. He's got the rapport with Justin Herbert. He's another receiver that I really like as far as coming into this season. I think he's somebody that isn't a big name, but could have a big season because there's not a lot of competition. We'll see how, Quentin Johnston does. Obviously, he's somebody that a lot of people, again, gave up on, like Bryce Young. But I think Johnston might have a really good season. So traditionally, receivers take about 3 years. Okay. So when you're talking 3 years, he's not quite there yet. It takes about 3 years for a guy to get kind of adjusted and accumulated in an offense. We're kind of spoiled with some of these receivers that are coming into the NFL that are on pro offenses in college that just gel and send off into the season as a wide receiver one, and that's not always traditional. So again, not quite giving up on him. He's somebody that I talked about all off season that you should want to try to go after. You probably get really good value for him. But again, I wouldn't start him yet, but I would definitely, consider putting, McConkey in my lineup as well. So I'll be asking some more questions. So about, I would say about 12:15. I've got some lineups of myself. I've got some other stuff I've got going on, but I want to answer some more questions for you guys. So if you guys are there, make sure you ask away. And again, just making sure you guys are up to date with the injuries. We've got T. Higgins out. You got Russell Wilson out. Tyreek Hill is going to play, even though he had some craziness this morning. Drop one for kicker, Curtis. So if I have to drop one for a kicker, I'm probably going to go. Let me see. I'm looking at what you got there. I don't know who I'd like. Let's see. All right. So Curtis Samuel, Eckler, Cleo, need one tight end. So tight end, I'm going to put in Freiermuth. I think he's going to I like Hunter Henry a lot. I'm gonna give it to Fairmouth over Hunter or Taysom Hill. As far as dropping one of those players for a kicker, I would probably drop Herbert. Khalil Herbert's probably the only one of those players that, as of right now, won't have the any type of starting ability as of right now. Chuba's starting. Flowers, obviously. Jay is sent. I think it's great. Curtis Samuel's starting. Eckler's starting. Yeah, I would drop Khalil Herbert for a kicker. And as far as tight end, I'm going with Muth over Henry and Taysom. So even though I like Hunter Henry's matchup, I think he's actually got a great matchup. He's one of my favorite tight ends coming into this week. I think he's going to be Brissett's go-to. Um, I'm not really sure how that whole receiving core is going to be for New England. You've got Douglas, who I do like, but I'm not sure he's going to carry the team. There's so little wide receiver ones or even wide receiver twos on that team that I think Hunter Henry takes advantage of that. So for sure, I would. Yeah, no problem. Again, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Like I said, I'll be asking. I'll be on here for another 20 minutes or so. And again, I know Jamar Chase is a big one. You should put him in your lineup again because T. Higgins has been officially out. Joe Burrow will obviously need him. Jamar Chase on a snap count in a low scoring game or Drake London. That's a tough one because you have Drake London. I would lean slightly over London over Chase because there is a possibility of limitation. And like you mentioned, or even I mentioned, New England may not even be able to keep up with the Bengals. And if that's the case, I think it's going to become the Zach Moss game, where Zach Moss has some success. Chase is hard to sit because he is such an elite talent and he may end up having an elite game. It's possible. But if you're comparing it to Drake London, who will need to be utilized against a Steelers team that is going to be pretty tough, I don't like the matchup for Drake London because I think Joey Porter Jr. is actually a really good cornerback. But I'll take London over Chase this week for that, just because of the limitations. So breaking news: Kendrick Lamar is going to be heading the halftime, so that's pretty cool. Nice little halftime show there. Um, so other news again, Dak Prescott got his extension, so great stuff for him. Again, something they don't have to think about. He goes right into the season as normal, so that's good stuff there. Obviously, with his premier receiver, CeeDee Lamb, getting his big contract, a lot of that stuff's kind of over with, which is great news. So that's obviously really solid. Justin Fields, definitely someone you may want to consider putting in your lineup if you're in maybe deeper leagues or super flex, because I think he's got a good matchup, at least because of his rushing ability. One of my favorite quarterbacks this week, I mentioned quite a bit in my starting sit is Jaden Daniels. I get that question a lot. A lot of people are kind of nervous to start a rookie, but I think going against Tampa, we'll see how that team defensively does. But I do like the Bucks defense, but I think Jaden Daniels' rushing ability is just going to be slightly an improvement, and I think it's going to be really good into a week one battle against a Bucks defense that is okay. It's kind of middle of the pack when it comes to run stuffing. So I like Jaden Daniels a lot this week as well. He's another one of my favorite quarterbacks. If you guys hadn't looked at my other starting sit videos, make sure you guys obviously are subscribed and check out those. I drop those Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. I'll be dropping obviously waiver wires because there's definitely some waiver wire players you want to consider, like Isaiah Likely. If you're in a really, really deep league, maybe Malik Willis because of Jordan Love's, injury. Justice Hill, another player you may want to consider. He had a really good game. He definitely was utilized quite a bit in that Baltimore offense than people had anticipated. And I think a lot of Baltimore fans were upset because Derrick Henry essentially got kind of pushed out of that game. And Justice Hill became a primary back who had 6 receptions, 57 yards. I mean, he was really good. So he's definitely a waiver wire. So that's kind of a preview of what this waiver wire video will be when it comes out tomorrow, because we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to that. So hopefully everyone's teams are healthy this week. We don't want to hear any news of injuries like Jordan Love. It's kind of heartbreaking to see going into week one and your star quarterback gets hurt. So it's part of the game, but hopefully everyone's favorite players, star players, everyone comes into this week one game healthy and leaving week one healthy. Because obviously, we don't want to deal with that. That's never any fun. So again, some big stuff there. So I got another about 10 minutes or so. I'll be live again just to kind of help answer those questions. Of course, you can always follow me on X or Instagram. If you have more questions and I didn't get to them on X, you can always ask away. I'll be helpful to help answer those. Of course, in the comments as well. If you ask in the comments, I'll get to it for sure to help you guys out with that. So again, ask any questions you guys have. As far as some other matchups I know people have been bringing up is David Montgomery, what to do with him. I still think David Montgomery is a solid RB2 in the NFL, who, again, even though Jameer Gibbs is solid, David Montgomery is still a red zone threat that if they can get down the field against that Rams defense, he's going to get some touchdowns. So I think David Montgomery is someone you want to start without question. Jamison Williams in that same games that a lot of people ask, Jameson Williams definitely somebody that I'm not super high on, but I understand the hype, and he could end up having a really good game. He's somebody that he's worth because of the upside. He's worth putting in for that reason. So again, as a flex player, maybe you've got 2 or 3 flex options on your team. I would consider doing that. So again, Jameson Williams. As far as the flip side, you've got Puka and Cooper. Obviously, Matthew Stafford's a great start this week. That Lions defense is actually pretty good, and I actually think they're going to be really good this season. But being in a shootout, Stafford has an opportunity to have to kind of compete with that, and he's got 2 great receivers. I think Cooper Cup ends up having the better game compared to Puka Nakua. Nakua is obviously dealing with an injury, so that's something he's got to deal with. And we'll see if that limits him at all. But again, a really good option there. Kyron Williams, you should still feel confident. Even though I don't like his matchup, I recommend him as a sit, depending on how your roster is built. If for whatever reason your roster doesn't have a lot of great running backs, you're going to put him in your lineup. And of course, if you get some benefits from kick return, special teams like return yards, then Kyron Williams has some value there as well. So again, feel confident in that aspect that he should be in your lineup. But if you have other options, like I said, more premier running backs, then you may want to put Kyron on the bench. Another running back I've been getting a lot of questions about has been DeAndre Swift in the Chicago offense. I'm not sure how Chicago is going to truly utilize him. He's looked good in the preseason. He is definitely a great PPR back. I'm curious how they're going to use all the running backs like Khalil Herbert or, Roshan Johnson, because obviously they do like them. Khalil Herbert has shown signs of, success, obviously Roshan. But I think Swift is a really good RB2 this week against the Tennessee Titans defense. On top of that, I think the way this offense is going to be built, he is going to be utilized quite a bit. I don't know how much of a red zone threat he'll be. I'm curious how that's going to play out, but I still think he's got really strong value when it comes to the receiving side of things. He is an explosive back. His always downfall has been his injury concerns. That has been the biggest issue for him. So I still feel, even though I get that question a lot, I would put him in. Just like I get the question for Austin Eckler. So there's a good chance there's going to be rain for the Tampa Bay Bucks game, which obviously bodes well for backs. I like Rashad White this week. I do like Austin Eckler to a degree. Like he's going to be a flex play. He's not going to be my RB1 or 2. I do think he's going to have some value. He's in a role where he gets to be the pass receiving back. He doesn't have to be the every down back. He even mentioned it. He really did not want to be the every down back in the Chargers offense. And because they have Brian Robinson, I think that only helps. I think Brian Robinson is going to help alleviate. I think Brian Robinson could be a back that secretly gets you 70, 80 yards on the ground, maybe a couple receptions here or there. All it takes is 70, 80 yards and a touchdown, and Brian Robinson puts you in the 14, 15-point range. So he's a back that I do like as well. But I like Austin Eckler just slightly because I think they do want to use him. I am curious because of the rain possibility how they're going to play, but that's somebody I really do like. I get Chris Godwin in that same game. A lot of questions for him. I love Chris Godwin this week. I love Chris Godwin this season in general. The way they're talking about utilizing him as the slot receiver, as his traditional position that he's played in the past, he's always been successful there. I don't think Baker Mayfield holds him back at all. I think Baker Mayfield's going to have some success again this season. I know he doesn't have Canellis anymore, but I don't think Canellis was all of it. I think Baker just finally truly feels like he's got his success back. I think he feels like he's got his swagger back, and it truly shows last year, and I think it's going to show this year. So I like this Bucks offense. I do hesitate a little bit with Rashad White. He wasn't very efficient last season. He didn't average very well on the ground, but he is going to, um, again, that offense using him. I do see a lot of people going after Bucky Irving. We'll see how that plays out. I'm not sure. I would put him, maybe in a dynasty team or against super deep league, but again, no one I'm putting in my roster because Rashad White is still their back at this point. So some other games. Again, as far as another game I'm looking forward to is the New York Jets and the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, get healthy Aaron Rodgers. A lot of people have been wondering how that's going to play out. I'm not in love with Aaron Rodgers or Brock Purdy this week as far as starts. Again, super flex leagues, you're probably going to put them in your lineup, but they have really tough matchups. Both the Jets and 49ers defense are really, really good, but I would hesitate. So far, there's been rumors, and I think it's been confirmed. Brandon Ayuk's probably going into the week one with limited snaps. So everyone who has Brandon Ayuk for Monday night, just adjust and accordingly to that. You may want to put somebody else in, which does amplify Debo Samuel's value because Debo obviously I think is a great player, but not quite the player I want to put in my lineup every single week. So I got a committee of running back twos. Who should you start? Running back two, Fulpio or Najee, Javante, Pollard. Okay, so I like Najee Harris, and I like Javante Williams this week. Pollard and Ford are tempting. Pollard, I really truly believe they're going to be in a split backfield. And then Ford, again, a really tough defense against Dallas. So I like Najee. I think his value this week is a lot better, and I like Javante Williams. A lot of people are sleeping on Javante Williams. I think Javante Williams is a back that has finally come into the season truly healthy, and I think it's only going to get better. So I like Javante Williams a lot. I would put him in. I would put those two as far as my starting backs this week. So like I mentioned, the Jets 49ers game going to be tough. Brandon Ayuk may not play every single snap, so just be aware, everybody. Like make sure you guys are, have a game plan for him because there's a chance he doesn't play every snap. I don't want you to put him in your lineup and then all of a sudden he has a dud game and then you're like disappointed because you can't make a change last minute. So just kind of pre-plan for that. Christian McCaffrey still dealing with the calf, Achilles injury. Definitely something you got to plan for. You make sure if you're anybody that's a Christian McCaffrey owner that you have Jordan Mason on your lineup or not your lineup, but in your bench. You've got to handcuff him or, play the strategy. Grab Jordan Mason for the people who have Christian McCaffrey so they can't have him for Monday night. So that's something you got to consider as well if you can put him on your bench. Brees Hall, I like, but tough matchup. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think Garrett Wilson ends up having probably the best game of all the players, just because I think Aaron Rodgers will be able to force some targets down his way. So I like, Garrett Wilson this week. So, again, I'm going to be here another 5 minutes. I've got some other stuff I've got to do right after this, obviously before the kickoff. So, again, ask your questions. Make sure you guys are subscribed. I'll be dropping waiver wire video tomorrow, start and sit videos all week. So that way I can help answer your questions and get you guys right for your NFL season. So, again, make sure you guys are subscribed and like. Again, 5 more minutes, and then I'll be on here. I've got, I think I have probably like 20 leagues. I've got to make sure all my lineups are right for this week. I think most of them are there, but I know a few players obviously are no longer playing. Like I mentioned, like T. Higgins, Russell Wilson's not in there. Actually, they just broke Roshan Johnson's not going to play, so that really leaves DeAndre Swift and Khalil Herbert. So, again, I think that helps Swift a lot more this week for those who asked about him. DeAndre Hopkins is going to play, so make sure you guys are aware of that. But he may be limited. Tyreek Hill is going to play. I know people have seen the news about that. Going into work and then all of a sudden getting pulled over, so that kind of sucks. But make sure you guys are aware. Jamar Chase is playing. Again, put him in your lineup unless you have other options. I'm still putting Jamar Chase in, even if the possibility of limited snaps. He is your 1 o'clock game, so just make sure you guys are prepared for that. So, again, make sure you guys are prepared. But I do like Jamar Chase this week still, even with him not being there most of the offseason. Yoshivas, again, Andre Yoshivas, make sure you guys have been able to grab him if you haven't. He's probably not available in most leagues now. I think most people grabbed him all week while the news was breaking. And again, just kind of preview of my waiver wire video for tomorrow. I'll mention players like Isaiah Likely, He may not be available in most, but he's still available. Again, a great play. Malik Willis in really deep leagues, just because of Jordan Love situation, with him being out for possibly 4 to 6 weeks. So there's some players that a couple players I'm going to mention for the waiver wire video for that's going to be dropped tomorrow. So I'll be working on that late tonight after all the games happen, just to get you guys ready and primed for this waiver wire week, because the waiver wires are probably your biggest bet to help you with anything as far as winning this season. Your draft is very important, but man, are waivers the most important thing you could do in fantasy all season. And of course, subscribing to this channel to help you guys out with your lineup questions, because again, that's what we're here for. We want to give you the best advice we possibly can based off stats and everything like that. So if you guys have any more questions, hit me up. Let me know. Again, if I don't get to any of your questions, even after the live, hit me up in the comments or follow me on X. I can obviously help answer questions there as well up until game time. So I will help you guys out with that. So I got another 2 minutes or so, and I will be hopping off of here. And again, I'll be answering questions in the comments and on X. So if you guys have more questions, please let me know. Ask away right now as well if you guys have questions for your lineup. I'm excited. We're getting down to, or about 45 minutes till kickoff. So I am super excited for the NFL season. I'm sure you guys are as well. Some really good matchups, some really good games, a lot of new, really not a lot of new running backs, a lot of new quarterbacks in some different teams. So really curious how that's going to play out for this upcoming season. So make sure you guys are talking that. And then anybody who does Dynasty football, I will be obviously doing some Dynasty content as well. I do not stop it. I just don't do it as much during the season, but I still will be talking players you might want to buy and sell throughout the season to help you win this year, or getting your team ready for the NFL draft. Maybe you got to sell some of those veterans to help you guys out. So again, make sure you guys are paying attention to my Dynasty content as well. I'd always thought about doing a separate channel for that, but I will keep it on this channel, just make everything fantasy football related. So get about 1 more minute or so, and then I'll be off. So if you guys have questions, let me know. One question I have gotten quite a bit has been Ridley. Calvin Ridley's been a question I've gotten quite a bit this week as well. I just want to talk about Calvin Ridley real quick. I think Calvin Ridley, yes, obviously had kind of some up and down games last season. I think he's actually going to have a really good game this week. I like his matchup. I think Will Levis will be, throwing his way, especially with DeAndre Hopkins possibly not playing as much as he would like, depending on how well he can manage the pain with his MCL injury. So, again, another player I do mention that you should consider starting this week will be Calvin Ridley. He's somebody I get a lot of questions about because I think a lot of people are uncertain of what's going to happen with him in the new offense, and how Will Levis is going to be. So again, someone that I think you should consider possibly putting in your lineup. So if you guys don't have any more questions, like I said, I will be hopping off. I've got some other stuff I've got to do right before kickoff. I will be answering questions in the comments down below. So keep asking those questions. If you aren't already subscribed, make sure you follow me on X. I'll be answering questions on there as well to help you guys out. Make sure, again, follow. I got your waiver wire video and start stuff going this week. And I'll check you guys out next time.